Here's how you can make this liquid explosion in After Effects. I'll show you 2 variations of it and an RGB version at the end. If you want the presets for this effect, as well as hundreds of others, check out the link in the description. Let's jump into After Effects, bro. The first thing we're gonna do is duplicate this 3 times. Ignore the name, it's in Russian. I found a music video that has very simple editing, so we're gonna work on this one for now. You're gonna take this top layer and first of all just rotoscope it. Control-Shift-D if you want to split a layer. So I'll just do this little part. If you don't know how to rotoscope, I'll show you how to rotoscope. You press Alt to delete stuff and you just click to add stuff and you try to make it as accurate as you can. Make sure to make it best. Then you just click play. Bro, what the f? It's a bit weird sometimes, you know. Now I'll rotoscope this. I'm gonna click freeze. Now that it's frozen, I'm gonna just clean it up, bring the feather up to like 10, shift the edge all the way, and maybe not all the way, and then like play with the contrast. I think this is pretty clean. Now once you have this, you can go ahead and do your effect. So first thing you can add is CC Mr. Mercury. Apply it to your middle layer. It makes everything like liquid. So you're gonna change a couple settings here. First off, the velocity. I bring it up to like 6, maybe 6.5. And then the birth rate, we're gonna change this one to maybe just like 35. It depends on the video that you have, the resolution and the lighting and everything, which is why if you decide to use the presets that I have in Editing Temple, you would have to tweak them a little bit. You change the gravity to 2.4. I make the birth size 0.35 and then the death size would be like 0.04. Already looks very cool. Nice. Once you have that, I'm just gonna apply VR glitch. VR digital glitch right after Mr. Mercury, and then I'll set the master amplitude to like 30 something. This adds like this effect. It makes it look more interesting, more detailed. Next effect is warp. So you go to distort, warp, twist and horizontal, and then you go from bend of -100 at the start of your animation, and then you go at the end, you make it 0, and then keyframe it to be very abrupt. I found it to work very well since I've used this effect many times. Next effect in order of effects is gonna be VR glow. You add it next up. And then with VR glow, the threshold is gonna be like 0.01 or 0.10, maybe even more than that. It depends on the footage. I prefer to have it like color everything. Nah, we'll just leave it like that. You can apply deep glow, but just for the sake of the tutorial, we're gonna use VR glow because I'm sure not everybody has that. So next up radius is gonna be like 49. And the saturation like 1.9. Then we're gonna add CC lens. Now with CC lens is gonna be the explosion itself. So it's gonna go from size 0 all the way to 500 at the end of your animation. And I would make it a little bit abrupt. This looks good. We have a little animation here. Now the last effect, optics compensation. This one we're gonna reverse lens distortion, and then the FOV is gonna go from 0 all the way to 100. Let's just ease it, so F9, and then boom, you have your effect. You can tweak it around and make it different, maybe have less droplets of water, of mercury. You can change that with the birth size and the death size. And then also add some effects on the subject, so you can maybe add some rays and then animate the rays or something. This is what we have with a continuous explosion. Now the second variation of this effect is a rapid explosion. So instead of having a continuous stream of water, it would be more like an explosion that fades away. It's gonna be the same exact effects. Although we're using the same effects, we're gonna have a bit of keyframes and different settings. Just follow along. If this seems a bit too complicated for you, you can just go ahead and join the Editing Temple and get the presets from there. In Mr. Mercury, you're gonna keyframe birth rate, gravity, burst size, and death size. Now on the first frame, the birth rate is gonna be 50. This time it's higher because it's an explosion. The gravity is 2, birth size 0.50, and then the death size 0.75. Don't keyframe the velocity, but you make it 8. Now once you got your first keyframes, you go a little bit further and you make the birth rate 0. And then the gravity, after a bit more keyframes, you make it like 16. And then somewhere around here, in between these 2 keyframes, you'd make the birth size and the death size 0. And I like to keyframe this to make it a bit more abrupt like this. The gravity, maybe a bit more to the end. Then these 2, I like to have them really abrupt, so you can see it fading away now. Now moving on to VR digital glitch is the same as the first version, just change the master amplitude to like 30. Warp, also the same thing, twist and then horizontal, and then bend it from -100 to, again, 0. All that until the end of the animation. And then for glow, I like to make the threshold a little more like 10 to 20, depending on the footage, so it has to be like bright. The radius, 140. It kind of simulates the effect that deep glow has on its own. And then the intensity like 0.4. so we don't want it too intense. But this is always dependent on the video that you have. These settings might look horrible on another video. Now for CC lens, we're gonna go once again size 0 to 500 to the end of the animation, and then keyframe it. And for optics compensation, we're gonna have it reverse lens distortion, FOV 0 on the first frame, and then about 100 once the animation is ending. And then you don't have to make it abrupt, just ease it a little bit. This is what you have. If you think that this covers up too much, like it's not detailed enough, you can go to Mr. Mercury and change the birth size and then depth size a little bit. Now it's more detailed. There you go. Now for the bonus, to make it RGB, you can apply 2 effects. First one would be for color gradient. That would be somewhere right after Mr. Mercury. And then you add colorama. These are default effects, by the way. Now what these do is they make it RGB. But in order to animate it, you would go to output cycle and then cycle repetition. You go from 1 to like 3. This is how it looks. I think this is kind of weird. So I'd rather not use the 4 color gradient and just have colorama. So this is how you make it RGB.